the framing of a problem really implies a solution. And I was just thinking, because I'm in LA, that homeless, a lot of people have been upset with that word for politically correct reasons. They're like, they're currently unhomed is what they prefer. But to me, focusing on the home really misunderstands and I think broadens the category of people that need help. And it casts too wide a net and implies a single serving solution, which is like, oh, if we can get the homeless homes, things will be okay. And what it would probably be more useful to subdivide and be like, look, you have some people who have mental health issues, other people who have drug addiction, other people who have just lost their job and are living in their car temporarily, and there's all different mixes of these types of
some
things
people need to get just a helping hand back on their feet. Some people need mental health help, and some people, they need help with their drug addiction. Yeah.
Yes.
They're very different camps of homeless.
Yes. And what I've seen is that unfortunately and I see it in my own area. There are groups that I know, because I was talking to a friend of ours he's a school teacher. He has a student whose parents lost their job in the pandemic, and he and his family were living out of a car, trying their best to get back on their feet. And the school was able to raise money to get them temporary housing, which was huge and is going to help them, and they're going to benefit from it. They're very receptive to financial injection. And I think that there's a large swath of the homeless population that is very receptive to housing, financial injection.
Sorry, when you say receptive, you mean would accept, or you mean can be helped by?
Like you give them this, and then
it can be the catalyst to helping
it helps them flourish. Yeah. Yes, and then I see immediately outside my door the opposite of that, which is the guy running the scam right outside the shoe store, who stands out there without shoes, pretends that he doesn't have any, takes your old shoes as you walk out of the store, sells them for drugs, and is back 30 minutes later running the same scam over and over. A cash injection.
We only know that because literally one of our buddies saw him.
I see him.
Felt bad.
Yeah.
Gave him a pair of shoes. He put them on. And then 30 minutes later, he was standing there without shoes again. It's like, oh, you don't need a pair of shoes. I don't know what you need, but it's definitely not a pair of shoes.
Yes. Or cash injection. What you need, now you might need things that cost money, like social services and a counselor. But what you don't need is somebody to hand you $300 and say, use this how best you see fit. And so I don't know at all what the percentages of each are. I imagine they break down heavily by area,
Sure.
But it just seems to me that as we talk about the problem, because I felt our buddy and me slightly misunderstanding ourselves for the first part of this conversation, where he talked about how they were dealing with homelessness. And I was like, but this doesn't match my on the ground Santa Monica experience. And I was like, oh, we're not talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree that fundraising works here. And I'm sure that if you walked around my neighborhood, you would not throw a fundraiser for this individual unless it was to get them drug rehabilitation help, and you were to explicitly say where these funds were going and not give them agency over that. And that's all. Just that the word is, it hurts solution finding.
Sure. I mean, also, to be fair, depending on your situation, it's not appealing to, the short-term appeal of quote-unquote moving up in society is pretty low. Yeah. I hang out in the sun. I do this scam. I get drugs. They feel amazing. And that's kind of like my circle of life, versus I go through withdrawal so that I can go get a minimum wage job so that I can struggle to support myself in this new sober world. That's not the sexiest offer, especially when you're currently doing drugs.
It's a miracle that more people don't just turn to drugs. Because if you think about it, I mean, the Buddha said he was a prince. Life is suffering. Life is really hard. If you're wealthy, life is hard. If you're poor, it can be even freaking harder. And so there's this struggling subsistence life. And by the way, drugs are not terribly expensive. So you could spend 4 to 12 hours of your day feeling really good. Now, you're going to feel pretty terrible for the other 12, but if you remove the social shame and all of that kind of stuff, and people were just making purely rational decisions.
Short-term decisions.
Who says that the long-term even matters?
I agree.
Long-term, we're all dead.
Yeah.
It's a miracle that more people don't just do
this is
drugs.
kind of why, this is one of the reasons why people take outrage with the fact that weed is illegal. which is like, I do work a shitty minimum wage job.
Yeah.
I am struggling in the system. I haven't turned to crime. I'm just doing a shitty job. And when I come home, I want to smoke weed and feel better as I try to make it in society the right way. And now I'm getting in trouble for this thing that harms no one, that I do in my own home. And I don't know. I am persuaded by the argument. I think it's insane that weed is illegal. So, but yeah, that is the argument. It's like, I'm doing the fucking shit work, and I have this horrible, lowest person on the totem pole life. And when I smoke weed to feel better about it, you guys hassle me or arrest me.
Yeah. Well, I think when I think about drugs, I think that I'm not saying that the way that we're describing it being used in the streets outside of our house is a sustainable, good, or admirable, advisable way to do it.
No, not at all. I'm just saying I understand why they don't get out of the cycle they're in.
Yes, and I would add to that, like, the reason that more people don't do it is for a collectively rational but individually irrational shame that is placed on drug use. The fact that 70 and 80-year-olds just don't go hard at all kinds of things.
I'm always surprised by that. I'm always surprised when 7-year-olds don't just turn to drugs.
That's because not doing drugs is a religion. It is a religiously inculcated thing that says this is bad, wrong, shameful, incorrect. And because, by the way, if you fucking taste this, you're going to have a very different opinion. Now, I'm not advising flippant drug use. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that there are circumstances, substances that it makes totally selfish individual sense to just feel good and to not and to pay a price on the come down, given where your life is at. And when I was reflecting on that, I was like, oh my gosh, it's actually a miracle that more people don't just do this. And then I was like, there's this tremendous shame, social pressure, and never touch it. That is, it's good for the collective, because obviously if we had more people doing that, then we wouldn't collectively be here or get very far. So I'm not going to change my individual behavior, but I have thought, like, it's not going to work, but I have one remaining grandparent. I was like, I wish that I could get her some MDMA. Now I would want to clear it with the doctor, and I can't, and I won't, and it's not a real thing. So if you're nervous out there that I'm going to give her a heart attack, don't. It's not going to happen. But it's occurred to me that she's gone 93 years. She's in the twilight of her life. She's got very simple joys, but it's like, man, I would like her to feel pure ecstasy and pure love before she goes. It never occurred to her. And it never would, because of just how we treat these things.
Yeah. And there's also certain drugs, certainly, or an addiction to drugs can lead you to doing behavior that's harmful to society, like robbing people. Yeah. So you have to take that into account for sure. But I don't think people have an obligation to try to live as long as possible, for instance. So if somebody wanted to work a job, become a heroin addict, never hurt any other individuals in their life, just literally go be a productive worker somehow, but then do heroin at night, it's like, you don't have an obligation to not die at 30 because of this.
You see the professor that came out and said he's been microdosing?
Yeah,
heroin?
he microdoses it, right?
Yeah. He works for me. He's like 60 years old or something.
Yeah. No, the problem is that, the problem is that drug addiction is very real. You can turn to drugs in a non-rational moment of emotional struggle or whatever it might be, even just peer pressures. And then now you're addicted to drugs. And then now you're doing things that are harmful to yourself and harmful society, that aren't made from this idea that you're going to, peacefully die at 30 because you've chosen this life, but you're in this cycle, this very destructive cycle.
And regret it terribly.
Yeah. So I don't want to downplay that that's super real. And what happens most of the time when you turn to stuff like this is you end up in a dark place and you regret it.
Well, here's what I'll say. I actually don't know if it happens most of the time. I don't know that it doesn't happen most of the time, but I realize that my experience of drugs is in the therapeutic sense with psychedelics, and then really just like myths about drugs. And I don't mean myths in the sense that it's untrue. It's like there's a mythology around drugs and an origin story and the type of person. And I'm just realizing, I've never critically examined that, because what I also experienced at UVA was, not personally, but like heavy cocaine use at University of Virginia amongst the fraternity. And the people appear to be doing what you would consider highly prestigious, successful work now, and I think they continue to use cocaine.
Oh yeah, bro. You're just talking about the finance industry and the law industry and all sorts of shit.
And so the mythology I don't think captures the entirety of...
Well, I don't know any, so again, this is just completely, I don't know anyone who does heroin. So I don't know anyone who does heroin and then goes and is a hedge fund manager or a partner at a law firm.
Sure.
Does that mean that heroin is more destructive or that people don't experiment with it? Blah, 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 blah. I don't know. But let's just caveat. I know a lot of successful...
Do you know people that are hooked on pain meds that like morphine? I mean, that's what heroin is.
No, dude, I don't know any investment bankers that are hooked on pain meds.
Okay. People that have gotten hooked on pain meds. We have a friend that was on pain meds.
Yeah, but he broke his rib and then went through withdrawal to get off of them. That's not a recreational user. No. The people I know that use recreational drugs and are very successful by society standards, which means clean cut, not life in disarray, financially successful, do cocaine,
coffee,
acid, coffee, alcohol, vaping, cocaine, acid, MDMA, and psilocybin.
And dip.
None of them are recreational painkiller users or recreational heroin users. Yeah. So that's not to say it's not out there, but just to be clear, those two, I know no one who does those at all, let alone is struggling, or I don't know anyone who does heroin. So
I'm not, just to be clear, don't do drugs because that is the safe place for me to stand because I don't understand it. But I was just thinking about this homeless problem and I was like, oh wow, I have like an unquestioned belief that drugs are bad. You know, that's still in there in my head. And I just, it's based on early conditioning and not based on thorough investigation. And I'm a little bit too nervous to investigate beyond the therapeutic psychedelic stuff. So I'm personally not going to. That's all. Hope that you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to see more like this and have us do more podcasts, we are 100% funded by our generous patrons. And if you'd like to contribute, there's a link in the description, and we'll have one pop up on the screen right here so that we can do more podcasts where we have fun conversations and hopefully some deep ones like this. Either way, hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.